Hello, everyone. This is going to be the chapter 6 wrap up video. It shouldn't be all that long at all. We'll try to get through this as quick as you can. Just a little reminder, since we will be finishing, we're concluding the first 6 chapters. Remember, you have an exam that will cover chapters 1 through 6 and the Bill of Rights. You can expect that to be posted within the next couple weeks, okay? So, let's go ahead and let's get started. Okay. Overview of the chapter. So obviously defining what federalism is. A lot of this information from this chapter is from chapter 2. So a lot of articles confederation gets brought up and other systems of government. So we'll talk about unitary systems. We'll talk about the power problem, which is once again balance in this chapter. So you guys need to know that federalism is a two-tier system. It is just separating national government and subnational districts. Okay. So we call them states here in America. If you go to Canada or Germany, they call them provinces. In America, our definition of dual sovereignty conflicts with itself because sovereignty means having highest authority, and technically you cannot have two of the highest authority. But that's how it works here in America. State and federal government are supposed to be 1A and 1B. Okay. It is important to note within federalism, the system, the states cannot destroy the national government, and the national government cannot destroy the states. They are both creatures of the Constitution. Okay. So the only way to destroy this system, you have to throw out the Constitution. Why federalism? The only thing that is the only thing that is mentioned in our Constitution, um, like specifically listed what government powers that they have, is coin money and regulating interstate commerce. Okay, remember the Constitution isn't a step-by-step playbook. It is more just like some framework, a basic blueprint on how government should be structured. All our other government powers have either been defined through court cases or through laws being passed. Debate over federalism. You should know these three purposes, okay? The two levels of government serve as a checks and balance. It can bring more awareness to issues. So, like an example would be like the Central Valley in agriculture. Okay, agriculture is not just an issue, or rural towns issues might not be something that just happens in California, like farm towns. They exist in Idaho and Nebraska, other places within the United States. If that issue is being brought up in Washington, D.C., it might actually be more of a federal issue. Same thing with larger cities. Larger cities usually face similar issues with homelessness, the cost of housing, taxes, public safety. Okay, that might be an issue that is not a local or state one, so they can bring awareness to it, and then the federal government can come in and help out. States are known as test areas, okay? So the great example that we can look at this is with marijuana. Marijuana was not legalized in all 50 states to start. We started off with Colorado. Colorado volunteered, obviously, and it ended up working out. Now, the thinking behind this is it's much better to go 0 for 1 than 0 for 50. So, and obviously with marijuana, since it worked out, other states began to adopt it. And then now, in the stage that we're at now, it is both legal at the federal and at the state level. Okay, but we like to test areas in a smaller sample size first before we make the whole United States follow along with it. Now, unitary system. This is actually the most common found system within government. It is just one level, and that is it. So there's just federal government. Your textbook mentions that in France, they can create subnational units, so they can create states, local government, provinces. Now, in this system, in a unitary system, the central government can actually, since they are the only level of government involved, anything that is lower or beneath them can be abolished whenever they feel like. Okay, so they can destroy lower levels of government or create them how they best see fit because they're the only level of government. Now, this is the most common type of system, but this is not the system that we obviously use here in America. We go based off of federalism. Confederal system, we talked about this in chapter 2. Best example of it is the Articles of Confederation. It is when power is decentralized, so dispersed throughout the states. Now, federalism continued. You need to know these bottom two definitions. So supremacy clause and reserve powers. Supremacy clause is to make sure that states do not have different laws, or states can have different laws, but they can't pass laws that conflict with federal laws. Okay, so great example of this is firearms. Okay, so firearms, you can own a firearm in America. In California, you can own a firearm. However, there are some certain restrictions. Now, they're not saying that they're not conflicting with the laws, but they're just saying there's an additional requirement. An example of this is like if you own a rifle here in California, you can have a maximum magazine capacity of 10. Okay, a great example to compare to this is like if you asked your parents to go out. Your mom says yes, you can go out. Your dad says no, or your dad says yes, you can, but after you clean your room. They both give you the same answer. However, one is asking for an additional requirement. Okay, so supremacy clause prohibits laws that conflict. A conflicting law would be like if the federal government is saying abortion is illegal, but then states like California are saying, no, it's legal, you can still do it here. That's conflicting. If we go back to the parents example, your dad's telling you, no, you can't go out. Your mom is telling you, yes. You don't know what to do. Most of the time, people are going to follow along or side with the side of government that goes based off of their own personal values or beliefs, so that what fits them. Now, reserve powers, all powers. This is the 10th Amendment. If you guys took the Bill of Rights quiz, you probably already came across this. If it was on there, since it was based off a bank, all powers that are not delegated to the federal government get left to the state or the public. Some areas in policy in which we overlap are going to be taxation, law and order, economics, education. Okay. Usually, I like to show during this time like gas prices. So you get taxed at the federal level, and then you also pay a state tax. Okay. I want to say if you look in the modules, I have that up there. I also have education policy where it's ranked, how California differs K through 12 and higher education in comparison to the rest of the United States. Okay. But obviously, this side right here is supposed to be federal government. This is what they're mainly concerned with, and this is what state government's concerned with. But remember, there's some overlapping issues. Here's the amount of government that we have. Okay, so now this overcomplicates government and politics. Remember, more government is subjective of whether or not it is good or bad for us. What the one thing is for sure though, it does cost more. Okay, like it costs money, a lot of tax dollars to fund all of this. Okay, now this number is from like 2006, 2007. It has expanded over time. I want to say some of the more upgraded numbers will have us north of 90,000, like different types of government institutions within America. Okay. And remember, obviously, it's upsetting because we spend all these tax dollars and we're kind of wondering, where is it going? Is it fixing issues within our society? Like, do we have good schools? Are there potholes filled in the road? Is crime being lower? Things like that. So it's okay to question it. And just kind of remember, more government isn't always good. And then as you add more government, remember, you receive more order, but you are losing out on some freedom. So you should question why. Now, federalism continue. It's just a power problem. It's just finding a balance, like how much power the state should have in comparison to the federal government. A couple more terms you should know: dual federalism, 1A, 1B, federal and state government. Think of your parents raising you, okay? You shouldn't be ranking your parents one over the other. They should have the equal amount of responsibility. Now, just like your parents working together, which would be cooperative federalism, the state and the national government should be working together on similar issues, because the whole goal should be to help the public, whether it doesn't matter if the federal government is helping all 50 states or if the state of California is helping its residents, okay? Regardless, they should be collabing with each other and sharing information and administering policy together in order to benefit the Commonwealth. Now, Brown versus Board of Education, you should know the last line, and that's probably it. This is an example where we see actually some backlash, okay? The court had to step in and say states were actually overstepping their boundaries by segregating people on account of race within schools. Obviously, states felt that they had the right. They said, no, we should be able to segregate schools if we want. And the national government says, I don't really think you have that responsibility, okay? This is a great example of us going in a back and forth and debating whose issue should it be to solve. Because in government, we don't just argue about the issue or how to fix it. We also argue about who should be the one that is fixing this potential issue. Okay, this is a great example of that. Fun fact: that is Cowboys owner Jerry Jones blocking a group of African American students from entering the campus. Slide, you don't really need to know too much. What you need to know though is that we are hypocritical sometimes on when we want government to be big and when we want it to be small. I'll give you two examples of this. We'll go over firearms and we'll go over abortion. Okay, conservative people, when it comes to firearms, tend to be what? Small on government. They want less regulations. However, when it comes to abortion, since they're pro-life, they would actually want government to be big in that area and regulate what people can and cannot do with their bodies. On the flip side of that, we have liberals who tend to be with firearms. They would rather have government regulation there. So government should be big with that in that area. But when it comes to abortion, since they're pro-choice, they would rather government take a back seat and not really do anything and be small in that area. So it's strategic. Your values on whether or not you think we should be have big government in a certain policy area or small government. Okay, textbook brings up marriage, sexual behavior, obscenity, the definition of marriage, the economy comes up, foreign affairs, any single topic you could think of. People have a conception of whether or not federal government should be in charge of that issue or state government, if there should be a lot of government in that area or there should be very little at all. Kind of the reason why we have a bunch of government institutions, as I showed you in that graphic a few slides back.
Last thing you need to know is immigration policy, okay? So you should kind of understand this court case a little bit. I might ask it. It's just once again another example where we see states and federal government arguing about whose issue is it to solve, because technically national security implications matter when it comes to immigration. So federal government should be kind of concerned about who is coming in and out of the country. This is something that we still face today. Your textbook talks about a specific court case though in Arizona. So they passed a law known as SB 1070. It was an immigration control law, and it required that Arizona officers determine citizenship and immigration status. What ended up happening? There was like in court there was three different provisions that occurred. Okay, so the court upheld provision number one, but struck down the other two. Number one was that they actually do have the power to establish a rule of naturalization, so they should be concerned about who is illegally in and not out of the country. However, they pretty much stated that the police cannot be just stopping people just cause, and they can't be deporting people on their own. Okay. Now, states obviously, some states are gonna adopt a variety of laws to keep discourage illegal entry, and other states might not be as strict, I would say. Regardless, though, this is an emotionally charged um, type of topic in policy, especially for us here in the Central Valley. Just remember, it also has national security issues, okay? And we argue whether or not, like, who is it to, like, for Arizona, their argument was, well, if federal government is not doing their job, we should be the ones that do it, okay? Because these people are coming into our state and it's putting a strain on our taxpayers and maybe the citizens within the state. Federal government is always going to say, but that is our border, you know? It's it's a difficult situation, okay? And as I mentioned, it's emotionally charged because it's something that we kind of deal with here in the Central Valley. Regardless, though, we have to kind of figure out who's should be. We should hope that both the state and federal government they're on the same page when it comes to administering this policy and not on different sides, because we don't want the national government saying like, hey, we're going to crack down on immigration, it is illegal, we're going to send people back, and then we have states that are known as like sanctuary states or sanctuary cities, and they're protecting these individuals. It's conflicting. Okay, we want our government to be on the same page. And that concludes this chapter. Remember, you'll have your first exam coming up. Sorry this went 12 minutes. I thought it was going to be a little bit shorter. Hopefully you guys are all doing well, enjoying the class. Next chapter we have is chapter 7, the media chapter.